It's all going on in Malaysia from Podcast Day Asia in Kuala Lumpur. The latest from podnews.net with AdvertiseCast. Podcast Day Asia took place in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Guanjin Yo presented data from his research for Pod News' Podcasts in Asia series. Kelly Reardon shared data from Australia. People from Acast, Audacia Audio and Miavox Live spoke to me about podcast monetization opportunities in the region, and the winners of the Radio Info Asia Podcast Awards 2023 were announced. In the US, ABC Audio has announced an exclusive multi-year podcast advertising partnership with Libsyn's AdvertiseCast. Shows include Edward R. Murrow Award winners Start Here and Reclaimed. 63% of parents have noticed improvements to their child's grades attributed to audio content. The detail is part of Sounds of Self-Esteem, a study from ABF Creative that takes a look at how children consume, respond to, and benefit from various forms of audio content. Criminal gangs behind a rise in bombings and shootings in Sweden in recent years are using fake Spotify streams to launder money. That's the unusual claim from Swedish newspaper Svenska Dagbladet. The article suggests that Swedish gangster rap is actually funding Swedish gangsters. Spotify says it's not found any data or hard evidence that indicates that the platform is being used at scale in the fashion described. The Ambies are open for entry with a special low price until September the 15th. The Hot Docs Podcast Festival in Toronto released its full program. It's the first in-person festival since 2019. Podcast One is scheduled to start trading on NASDAQ today as PODC. It says it's the first and only podcast network to go public. Acast, which went public in June 2021, might disagree. A new platform for UK podcasting talent is to be launched called the Pod Guest List. The service will be a thriving hub for podcast promotion, bringing together for the first time crucial parts of the industry. It launches next month, but applications are open now. Emmy award-winning remote recording tool CleanFeed has launched a new podcast landing page explaining how the tool works for podcasters. We use it for the Pod News Weekly Review. And the winners of Acast's Pod Power Up competition was Reprise, a plant-based activewear brand. The company wins $10,000 of podcast advertising. In People News, Podcast One, which starts trading on the NASDAQ today, signed a long-term deal with co-founder and president Kit Gray, and Jessica Wills has been promoted to be Jar Audio's Director of Operations. And in podcast news, we all need a bit of useless information in our lives. For example, in 1970, one American TV channel voted to not allow Sesame Street to be shown, and it was banned, officially postponed, for 3 weeks. Or in 1935, one New York cab company wired up the horns of their cars to go on permanently as soon as they went over 35 miles an hour. If you find that sort of thing interesting, useless information is for you. It's part of the Airwave Podcast Network, and we thank them for their support this month. And Alone, a Love Story is now available in 2 other languages, thanks to work by Acast, CBC Radio Canada, and Studio Okenta. Named by The Atlantic as one of the 50 best podcasts of 2017, Alone, a Love Story is an award-winning memoir by Michel Paris, who wrote, performed, and produced the series. This podcast is sponsored by AdvertiseCast. AdvertiseCast connects thousands of podcasts with thousands of advertisers and has been matching podcasts with brands since 2016. Find your fit. Join AdvertiseCast, the premier podcasting network, at advertisecast.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.